Hello and welcome back. I'm Faith Jacobs, and you're listening to Coffee Break, a retrospective media podcast that typically has been focusing on analyzing characters or pieces of media such as films or television, often through the lens of personal anecdotes, life stories, or neurodiversity. However, today I have a special guest on board and will be interviewing an incredibly talented friend, fellow actor, mentor, an accomplished film director and multi-recognized scriptwriter in the world of independent filmmaking, the lovely Jordan O'Neill. So, come along with me as I ask him questions about his most prominent piece of media, FableTown, which has had an amazing film festival run and one I've been so lucky in a myriad of ways to see grow. So, without further ado, grab that mocha and a sweet snack as we delve into today's episode of Coffee Break. Alrighty, so hello, welcome to my show. I'm your host, Faith Jacobs, and today I'd like to introduce my guest, the ever-talented and wonderful Jordan O'Neill. Hello, my friend. Welcome. Thank you for joining me all the way from Winterfell.
Yeah, who knew hell was going to freeze over down here? But no, as long as the power stays on, I'm happy to be here.
Yes, yeah. I woke up to 16-degree weather this morning too, so.
Well, at least your state is built for it. It goes to 30 and it's the apocalypse down here. I don't know what to tell you. We're not built for it. We literally are not built for it.
That makes sense. But would you mind telling those who are listening what you do, a few of the projects you've been in, and then we'll jump right into my questions.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I am Jordan O'Neill. I'm a graduate from UT Austin's film program with a degree specifying in screenwriting and directing, but primarily I'm an actor, and my top credits are probably The Sawyer Massacre, which just released last fall, Homebody, which also came out last year, and my passion project, which I wrote, directed, and produced and starred in because I'm crazy, FableTown.
And that's what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about FableTown in retrospective, and which will lead into my first question, which is, let's talk about that. Now, you've been asked plenty, I'm sure, why FableTown? Why create a show and now a feature about a bunch of fairy tale characters? But instead of that, because I've heard that question, my question to you is, did you ever imagine it would be thriving the way it has and did during the Film Fest run? And when you set out to make this, did you ever imagine that FableTown would be recognized and seen in the way that it's been seen?
Um, I mean, yes and no. So initially, I thought that there was going to be some craze around it as a web series, which I was very falsely mistaken. We really did fail to gain a lot of
Mm,
traction online, but that was more of a hindsight is 2020 issue where you realize that marketing and whatnot has a huge role to play in these things getting off the ground. And by the time we, had something to put out there, really the YouTube web series as a way to get discovered had kind of that flash in the pan and ended. But
right,
I
right.
so I didn't think about it being a feature really when we set out to shoot it. Ironically, I should have seen it much earlier than I did because, as I said, I have a degree that focused in screenwriting, which was primarily the three act structure or feature film structure, if you will.
Right.
And that's sort of how this thing came to be. If you look at it in script form, Fabletown really is just the three act structure broken up, and the episodes or chapters, quote unquote, are just the different plot points along the hero's journey or the three act structure. And we even shot episodes 2 through 6 like you would shoot a feature, with locations being the driving factor as far as scheduling and actor availability goes. So I should have known back then, and
Right.
that was 2018. I think we shot the rest of it. Yeah, 2 through 6 was 2018. I should
Yeah.
have seen it then, but I had no idea that it was going to be accepted by any film festivals because it's not really the easiest thing to digest. Like you said, it's this noir story with fairy tale characters, so it kind of
Yeah.
rides the line between genres, and that's not really the type of thing you see at film festivals.
No, no, and Fables I think stands out from as far as twisted fairy tales go, and it's one of the more unique ones out there I've seen that blends the detective fiction genre well with the idea of the fairy tale characters we all know and love. And you mentioned, which leads into question two, if I remember correctly, like you said, you came up with the idea and were inspired by DC's Fables back in 2017, 2018, and you shot in summer of 2018. And I think you already. But my question on that is, looking back in retrospective at where it started and where it's gone. You might have also kind of answered this a little bit, but is there anything you wish you would have done differently or could have done differently in any aspect of its creation?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm very proud of the final product. I think it is better than what I could have hoped for, or it's as good as I could have hoped for, but I really didn't know anything about producing as far as the practicality of it going into this thing. I had never really produced anything of this magnitude before at all. I, done some short films in high school and during college, but when you do those projects, you sort of have this foundation built in that, here you're going to check out the camera from here. Your classmates are going to help you on these days. Someone's going to hold the boom pole. It's just sort of a lot of things are given when you're doing
Right.
student projects, but when it's out in the adult world, so to speak, you really have to. I, I uh, I describe producing as you have to be the firefighter and put out the fires before anyone can notice there's a fire that started in the first place. You
Yes.
really are the boss, and if you're on set, especially, you are running the production. The AD is definitely running the crew, running the artistic aspects of it, I guess. But the producer is the guy who's got to be. It's like in theater when you're the stage manager. You have to be in control of so much and not be seen or noticed as little as possible. So
Right.
I
Right.
would definitely have probably brought on another producer. Um, I say that now, but looking back at it, money was a huge factor. So I don't know that we could have afforded it, but it may have been a good idea in retrospect just to maybe take a little more time to do more pre-production. I have a buddy in town who has a great shirt that says, "Don't fix it in post, fix it in pre." And that
Yeah.
was the biggest lesson going into this thing and coming out of it on the other side.
That makes sense, and that kind of also again rolls into the next one, which is as I've learned in the pursuit of my own projects, and as you even said, there's like in the adult world of doing these things, there is so much risk and a lot of unknowns. Any project can go one way or another, and sometimes it can't. It might not even pan out, and that's not always in our control. Funds, finances, resources,
Oh
time.
yeah.
However, in what ways would you say taking such a leap and a shot in the dark, if you will, with Fabletown maybe push you to take further risks in your pursuit of acting and filmmaking in the now, or even in the past?
Yeah. I can't say that I've taken as big of risks just yet. I mean, we're still in the early phases of whatever I'm gonna do next. Since Fabletown finished production, I was overseeing post production, but really, as I said earlier, I do think of myself as an actor first. So I really put a lot of time and energy into that aspect of my career following Fabletown, and so that way, not knowing we were going to go into a global pandemic in 2019, Fabletown was definitely a blessing that we had something to work on sort of remotely as we had been working on it before the pandemic.
Yeah.
I've gotten on track here after your question.
Oh,
What was it again? It was you might have to edit this out.
you're
Uh,
okay. You're okay.
can
It's
you hit
fun.
me with that question one more time? I went on
Yeah.
a tangent.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. Believe me, I go on tangents all the time here. um, my question was basically, like, do you think that like jumping that like taking such a shot in the dark with Fabletown might have pushed you to take different kind of risks either in your pursuit of acting or filmmaking?
Yeah, oh, it for sure did. I've definitely had to take more risks. Working the arts is a risk in
Oh,
general. I don't care if you're a painter, an actor, anything that works more on the creative side rather than the technical side of things is a risk. Cinematographers, notwithstanding, they sort of ride the line between the technical and the creative, in my opinion. but I think
Right.
it's all a risk. But coming out of Fable, I mean, I'll put it this way: we wrapped FableTown, uh, principal top photography wise, in August of 2018. I got the lead in my first feature film as just an actor. I want to say 2 to 3 months later. So um, I have to think that FableTown definitely, while once we wrapped principal photography, I was distraught. I was like, we're not going to have anything to put together. You just, because you haven't seen the footage, right? You haven't seen it all put together. There's no music, there's no effects. It's just a bunch of clips, basically, with sound not even synced. So I was very much in a bad place. Like, oh, this isn't going to
Oh,
work. This is such, it's been such a money pit. What's going to happen next? But I do believe sort of in high risk, high reward. And had I not taken that, you know, leap of faith, as you said so adequately, that maybe these other things wouldn't have come into my life. So I do owe Fabletown a lot for that, but it's definitely made me factor in risk versus reward. So the next thing I do, whether it's this short film or this feature film I'm writing, we're definitely going to take our time. We're going to minimize the risks.
100%. Yeah. No, and it's kind of insane to me that I discovered Fabletown ironically my last year of college before the pandemic happened, and it's so insane to see and amazing to see where it's gone, in the last couple of years really. Um
Oh yeah, who knew?
yeah, who knew?
Not me. Tell you that much.
Me either. But so this next question is kind of a bit of a fun one. So as you're a fan, of course, of the Fables comics, have you read Bigby versus Batman, the crossover? And if so, would you ever want to adapt the comic, even just as a short film?
Oh
If you
man.
were to adapt it, who would portray
Oh,
Batman?
that's so crazy. Here's the thing. I actually own the first issue and then I moved and it has not reared its head yet. So it's probably still in a box. So I own the first issue, but I haven't read it as of yet. And I know that they're about to relaunch Fables or maybe even a soft reboot. I'm not really sure
Uh,
which
there's a little continuation happening. It's
there
like
is.
Fables 150, and I think it's gonna be short lived. And I don't know how Bigby versus Batman ties in,
Oh
if at
yeah.
all.
I'm sure
But
it's
I
yeah,
know that was the big but would you adapt that?
Big Me versus Batman. I mean, it would be very tough. I mean, I think it's definitely doable. It's again, not knowing the story in it, but I mean, the title alone suggests that there's going to be, a skirmish or a all-out fight between the two characters. Um and I think the first issue of, if I'm remembering this right, it's called like A Wolf in Gotham. So it takes place in Gotham City, I
Yeah.
think. So I think that would be the hardest part of adapting it. There's tons of Batman short films out there on YouTube and whatnot, but I mean, they do run the gambit of, some are very professionally made, high quality, and some are, clearly some kids out of high school and they just
Right.
keep dropping the word Gotham and you don't quite buy it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think what Matt Reeves did with the Batman just last year was really selling Gotham as a location. And Chris Nolan did it very successfully too, but I felt Matt Reeves'
100%.
version really there was, and I hate this term, but there was a grit to Gotham that you don't see. Like
Yes.
no one's version of Gotham looks like any kind of metropolitan city in the United States, which works. But I think Reeves' version really um, sold me that this was a real place with real
Yeah.
systemic problems. And I
Yeah.
think
The
that's
only
the issue. And so if you're going to bring the big bad wolf into it, you've really got to ground this world and find someone who can play Batman, which is physically a very, very demanding character. So I don't know if I'm the
true.
person to adapt it because it sounds almost like two very tough adaptations in one. Because if you look at Fabletown, our version is very much probably the CW version of Fables, which I'm
That
totally
makes
fine with. But I'm not sure. I'd love to be a part of some adaptation, but I'm not sure I'm the one to helm such an adaptation.
I could see it being like a decent, like gritty audio drama if it were done right and adapted properly, and maybe a few
Oh
things
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
in,
like an
in,
audio,
in
yeah, an audio drama. Yeah,
yeah, like
that's
in license. I could see, like, I can see a way to do it. Even I could see a way to do it.
oh yeah, that's definitely probably the better way to go about it because you don't have to work in a visual medium.
And you can also create the grittiness of that city, like similar to like what Arkham did.
Yeah, and there's even this, I think there's an audio drama about Batman on HBO Max. I forget the name of it, but like, or the Sandman. audio drama
Yeah,
on Audible, which is fantastic. Yeah, there's
yeah,
definitely a way to do it.
yeah, I agree. Now the next question is still within our kind of like a fun range.
Oh, you asked who would I cast? I have no idea.
Yeah,
I have
yeah, you
no
know,
clue. Batman would be so hard to cast. Yeah, it's
that's
such a
true.
tough role. I mean, it's a dream role for me, but I need to probably age another 10 years or something uh, to
That's
try to
true.
have an accurate representation of Bruce Wayne, who I think is the harder character.
Yeah, he is. He is harder. Definitely. If the new Telltale games were to continue adapting fables into video games, and you were given the chance to audition, would you go for the opportunity? And who would you voice, given that Adam Harrington is Bigby for the games?
Oh yeah, I would never dream of going up against that man. I mean, he's the first guy to give Bigby an actual voice. I mean,
Heck
you
yeah.
really can't. And he was actually a very nice of us to follow FableTown on Twitter and retweet us a few
Mm-hmm.
times. To my knowledge, he at least watched the first episode and he said it was
That's
fun. So I love that
that's
he
cool.
doesn't have this ownership of the character. He feels like he's just a vessel for Bigby and he's going to do everything he can. And I'm so glad he's coming back. And even though,
Yeah,
we time will tell whether this new Wolf Among Us 2 from the new Telltale is going to be, will it live up? Will it
yeah.
not? Who knows? I mean, I hope and wish them all the best. But who would I want to play? I mean, I have to think of it's hard to think of because actually it's not. I take that back because really most of the characters in the Wolf Among Us were the majority of them were original characters made by Telltale. They weren't
Y-
in Fables.
Yeah, like if you want to pull from the comics too, I mean he we know that Bill Willingham is not afraid to use the most obscure public domain characters.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think we've seen Boy Blue in in the Wolf Among Us just yet, but I think you'd actually have to have more of a childlike voice. I honestly think I would, as far as voice acting, I have to think about it as voice acting where my face isn't in play here. I think I'd want to try my hand at some sort of antagonistic character. Maybe not the biggest bad that they're going to have in the Wolf Among Us 2, but we haven't heard the Tin Man or the Scarecrow that were in the reveal trailer.
That's
But
true.
someone who's more mysterious, I think, would be something I'd want to try my hand at just because, I mean,
Hmm.
you guys can't see me, listeners, but my voice and face, I've been told many times, they don't quite match up. My voice is very deeper, and I clean shaven look like I'm about 24, and I am not close to it. So, yeah, I mean, I'd have to lean into the
Maybe.
voice, and so
Hmm.
that's definitely more like, put it this way, I'm always going to be Scar, not Simba, right?
Yeah,
So
right. That makes sense. Hmm. I mean, I
I
was
gotta wrap my brain for a character here. I gotta think of somebody. I'll
yeah.
think
We
about it
can
and I'll
come
get
back,
you a
but
character.
yeah, it's all right. So rolling back around to your journey with Fabletown, what would you say was the toughest learning curve you had while crafting this project? What parts of the project of the process really tested you, and what did you walk away with because of it?
Oh man. So the hardest part, um, as far as like principal photography, you mean, or do you just mean the process altogether?
Um, whatever like comes to your mind first.
Yeah. I mean, it was a grueling shoot. Don't get me wrong. There were not very many easy days. I mean, put it in perspective this way: the easiest days were in the office, and we never had air conditioning, so we
Oh
were always just
yeah,
sweating our what's off the
I
entire
rem-
time.
I
But
remember
those,
that.
so when I tell you those were the easy days because we were in one location, the setups were we can only do so many setups given the amount of space in that room. Yeah, I think you know what it was? The hardest location probably was the although it was a beautiful location, it's actually my favorite location because we were given it free by Fourth Tap Brewing Cooperative, who are unfortunately no longer in business as of a few months ago. The pandemic finally did them in, but
Mm.
they let us shoot in their brewery an
The
entire
where
night for our the climax in episode
the where
6.
scene. That scene's amazing. I freaking love that fight.
Yeah, but that was that entire sequence, the first half really of episode 6, that's all done over the course of one night. And I remember we were shooting it. We shouldn't have done it this way. Here's what I've learned. We shot it chronologically and we shouldn't have done
Mm.
that. We shot it like from, Bigby, myself walking in through the fight. The only thing we had shot there previously, I think, was Emma's coverage of Snow when she shows up at the end because when we
Okay.
shot the rest of it, she had already flown out to San Francisco to start. her grad school education.
Okay.
So really, when you see her in the reveal, spoiler, but when the bad guy falls out of frame to reveal her with the gun, that's actually not our bad guy. That's me wearing a vest. I'm the body that falls out of frame, but the camera's so
Okay.
close you can't tell it's my back. And
Okay.
that's I'd forgotten about that till we started talking
So
about it here, but
that's
that
not
was
good.
me because Justin wasn't there that day, and
Okay.
she was. So the
Huh.
night that was just it was just Justin and I. That was hard, and I've told this story a few times, but really from the moment the fight gets going to the end of that scene, or not the end of the scene, from the moment the fight gets going to when Snow shows up, those are every angle is almost always the first and only take we had time to get. We were literally doing the fight and okay, pause, camera moves. We don't have time to move lights. Just move the camera and hope we can get it. Resume. Pause, move the camera, resume. Pause, move the camera,
Ooh.
resume. So we maybe did that scene, I want to say 2 or 3 times. And what you see is what we shot. There weren't many alternate takes. So I was really scared that that was not going to we were just gonna miss an angle or something, have to go back. The only thing we had to go back later one night was do my stuff with the walkie-talkie at the top of the episode. But that was a scary, scary night. That was really, really hard. And it was, it's your climax. You have to
It
sort of
has to
land the plane.
be.
So I was nervous. I was insanely nervous that night because I also have to, I'm directing, I'm the producer. We're losing, our hours. We have to be out of there at 6 a.m. before they have to come in and open and they turn on all the machinery and then our sound is just going to be worthless at that point. So I was very nervous and somehow I still have to act in those moments. So thank God Justin had all the dialogue and I had very minimal as far as dialogue to learn because
Yeah.
that was a rough one.
That was, I mean, and I mean, it's absolutely one of my favorite scenes. Like, there are a lot of scenes I love in FableTown. Like, that one definitely is the one I think I always, I come back to sometimes.
Yeah,
Um,
looking at it, you would never know all the stress and factors working against us. But looking back on it, because I mean, hindsight is 2020. I just remember the good stuff mostly, but I do remember
right,
that being an arduous night.
right. So my next question for you is: you mentioned that you wore like several hats while FableTown was in production, and post production was more management.
Yeah,
But
don't
of
recommend
the
it.
I'm doing it. I know how that feels. Of the roles though that you had while it was still in development, would you say that you gained knowledge and experience you didn't have previously? And in that experience, has it assisted you in anything that you've done or went after following Fabletown's conclusion?
Oh yeah. Like I said, I did not know what producing really meant, and now I do. And I know that I can do it, but I can't tell you that it's something that I particularly enjoy. So, for example, the next project I've got coming up that I've written and I'm going to direct. I won't be acting in it. I made that hard decision months and months ago that I was not going to put myself in this thing. Plus, there's only about one role I could play in it, and it's not worth me jumping in and not being behind the monitor. But I have a producing partner, my old co-star from Nothing But the Blood, Rachel Hudson, has signed on to co-produce this short film with me. And Rachel actually has a degree in producing from NYU, so she does, and she produced Nothing But the Blood, I should say, very, very well. I might add. So
Yeah,
she
that's
really knows what she's doing, and she's continuing sort of to educate me, and I'm continuing to learn what my strengths and weaknesses are as a producer. I don't like managing money. I don't like line producing at all. It's just not how my brain works. So that is definitely a challenge for me. The locations I'm okay with locking down. I did a lot of that work on Fabletown as well, just reaching
great.
out to people and whatnot. So as far as like the event planning, quote unquote, aspects of producing, I sort of enjoy just because it feels like solving a puzzle. But moving forward, I know where my strengths and weaknesses lie. And I've always said the reason Fabletown, if it was successful at all, is because I was number one, I was lucky with the people I hired, but number two, I hired people that were smarter than I am in their own fields. So going
Well,
forward, it's a blessing and a curse that Fabletown has done so well because that's the standard have when people look at you. So like if Fabletown had just plummeted and just been the worst thing put on the internet, well, hey, if there's only one way to go is up. So
right, right.
but now
Um,
there's that added pressure of okay, you gotta either keep the same level of quality or top it. But that's why
And
we're doing shorts and we're not doing features right now. We're gonna go to
y-
something small and doable.
yeah, you experiment, see what works for you, and don't necessarily, like, I wouldn't say try to live up to that pressure. Like, in my opinion, what I've seen of what you did for Fabletown was amazing. I'm always gonna tell you that because that's the truth.
Well, thank you.
But I don't think that you don't try to live up to that. Always try to do something. What am I trying to say? Try to do something, I guess, different, or reach the next peak. That's it. That's the better way to say it. Reach the next peak
Oh
always.
yeah, I mean, I will say this: the best compliment I got when I was sort of wondering if Fabletown was what it was going to be while we were in post. A buddy of mine in class, my acting class, we were all sometimes we'll go out after class, grab a drink and you shoot the breeze. And he was just talking to me about like, man, so what's this thing you've been working on? I see you got something cooking. Tell me a little about it. And I told him about, the concept. It's this versus meets that, and it's about fairy tale characters and so on and so forth. He's like, yeah, man. So how do you feel about it? Like you crossed that finish line. And I'm like, oh, we haven't crossed the finish line. Sorry, something's printing here. I'm gonna pause.
You're okay. You're
All
okay.
right. So yeah, my friend asked me, "So how does it feel to cross that finish line, man? Like, what's that feeling like?" And I just was honest with him, said, "Look, man, I don't know if it's going to be anything good. I don't know if it's going to be usable. This might be one of those films. Like 90% of all movies, they don't get made. We might be in that category." He's like, "No, you'll get it made because you finished it." He goes, I bet you this." He looks at me and he goes, "You'll never not finish something you set out to do now." So I'm hoping that's at least just the standard that whatever I put my mind to or whatever I, you know, strive to finish project wise, that I will see it through to the end. Whether that's stubbornness or not, I can't say. But I hope that's at least what I carry forward. And, quality isn't really up to an audience. It's up to, I just want to be proud of what I make and what I put out there, the work that I put out there, whether that's behind the camera or just being an actor or multiple hats or what have you. I just want to be able to say that I was proud of my work and it was just a little better than last time because that
Yeah.
shows growth and learning.
Yes, I agree with that. As long as you're enjoying the process of what you're making, I think whatever you're making is going to make an impact to somebody, even if it's not necessarily to who you may think it is. It's always going to make an impact to someone. And which kind of rolls into another question, which is now Fabletown season 1 ends on the cliffhanger. Are there ever hopes to come back with something, or do you think the chapter has finally closed, at least for Sheriff Bigby and the citizens of Fabletown for you?
Oh man. I mean, yeah, it does end on a bit of a cliffhanger, doesn't it? I mean, a couple cliffhangers if you think about it. No,
Yeah.
during the pandemic or the height of the pandemic, I definitely tried to crack season 2, and I gotta say I was very lucky with season 1 that I wrote the first drafts in about a week. Now, they were terrible first drafts, don't get me wrong, but it was just kind of, like, spilling out of me, and that was nice, and that has never happened, or I've never been able to replicate that again, whether it's been Fabletown season 2 or anything else. I just writer's block is something I just struggle infinitely with. But no, I would love to come back to Fabletown. There's at least 2 more seasons or 2 more sequels, however you want to look at it,
Yeah.
to happen. But I know that season 2, maybe I'll be like James Cameron, I will come back to it in like 13 years or whatever. But
Yes.
season 2 would have to be, I mean, it's so much bigger. And as far as like producing goes, it is just a mother you know what to
Yeah.
tackle. I mean, I remember the a friend who helped me sort of get the ball rolling, at least on the pilot of Fabletown. I told her, "Hey, I have an idea. I'm gonna start trying to write season 2 or just outline it, make some notes." She goes, "Cool, but remember, we're learning that imagination and reality, we have to balance those 2 forces here.
There are yeah.
You can't always get what you want, right? As the song says."
Yep.
And I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, gotcha, gotcha, gotcha." And I just racked my brain for probably 2 weeks. And finally, I had to be honest. I emailed her. I said, "So you're not going to be happy with me. Season 2 opens underground, lit completely by torches, and it has to have 100 extras in rags." And she said, "What the hell did I just tell you?" And I said, "I know, I'm sorry, but this is what the muse has sent me, and we can't go back on it." But yeah, I mean, if we do season 2, I can't put any of my own money in it because I can't take any more calls from the bank when we were paying for that first season. I can't do that
Mm,
again.
yeah, it
Um,
would be a miracle of
yeah,
funds.
I mean, it's we could do it. It could definitely get done. Um, and I know that as far as the cast goes, I mean, I know all of them, most of them, maybe not all of them, but most of them would come back in a heartbeat. I know Emma says she would do it again. Excuse me, Holly, they would come back. Cole would come back, and Cole would have a much bigger role
Heck
as
yeah.
Lawrence. Unfortunately, Noah, who plays Boy Blue, he did sort of do this thing called growing up in puberty, and that kid has a voice that's almost as deep as me, and he's like almost my height now. So, as far as Boy Blue goes, I mean, we would just write in something that would explain it away.
Yeah,
But when you deal with magic, you can get away with that kind of stuff.
yeah,
But
100%.
I will never say the chapter is closed, but I would say that Fabletown, as it exists right now, it's in a good place, and I feel okay sort of walking away from it for now.
Yeah,
As its own contained story. I think what we set out to accomplish, we achieved, and I couldn't be prouder of the whole team for it. And especially now that we've ended our film festival run, winning
yeah.
Best in Fest at the Austin Indie Film Festival just about a month ago. That was a very nice sort of feather in our cap.
100%, and congratulations on that,
Thank
on
you.
all the wins and that you've gotten too. Where was I? Oh yeah, you mentioned drafts, which leads into my next question, which is, would you say like how many drafts would you say it took for you to finalize the story that unfolds with Fabletown? Is there anything from earlier drafts you would gladly have brought back in a heartbeat, or is the version we see the one you're happiest with?
Oh man. Episodes 2 through 6, there were probably, I'm gonna say somewhere between 4 and 6 drafts. Episode 1 easily had 12 drafts,
Oh my.
no question, because it
Oh
was this
wow.
thing of you have to not only marry The Wolf Among Us and Fables, you have to write something that's accessible both for the fans and for those coming into it without any prior knowledge.
Right.
So there's Easter eggs, that fans will catch. I think
I
Emma
did.
has a line that says, telltale signs of a good story. That's a nod to Telltale Games.
The wine scene reminded me of one of the scenes out of the comic, like straight out of the comic, when Emma and Cindy and Briar Rose are all having their wine and talking about
Oh,
Prince Charming.
for sure. That scene and the scene where Mowgli shows up to rescue Bigby. I mean, those are almost, I don't want to say we imitated them, but we definitely took heavy inspiration from them as far as our jumping off points for both characters.
Yeah.
Uh, Yeah, I mean, looking back at it though, there was this and you and I may have talked about this before, but there
Thanks.
was a I'm very influenced by Lost as far
Yeah.
as writing, and Damon Lindelof, really I should say, because The Leftovers has been a huge influence as far as what I have down for season 2 of Fabletown, specifically The Leftovers season 2. But we had this running flashback that was gonna just intercut throughout the episodes or chapters really, and it was gonna be we almost got it done. We had someone, a visual effects guy on standby to do the CGI work. We had a location, we had the extras, and it was going to take place in the homelands. And it was
Yeah.
going to be a sequence. We even cast someone to play Rose Red. We actually had an actress on deck to play Rose Red, so she was cut. Who's Snow White's sister for those listeners who don't know. But it was going to be about the story how Snow and Bigby first met in the fairy tale world. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, the summary is basically Snow and Rose were captured by the adversary, who is this warlord who basically is the reason why they all live in New York City and not in the fairy tale world anymore, because he was a tyrant and basically just waged scorched earth warfare across all the fairy tale worlds. And Snow and Rose are captured, and Bigby as a wolf attacks the camp one night because he's just hungry and he enjoys the sport of flexing his strength against would-be adversaries.
Yeah.
And he comes upon Snow and Rose. In our version, they're chained to a tree because I wanted them in a spot that was sort of off the beaten path in the camp, and then they were going to look up and they were going to notice the whole camp was in flames, hear the wolf, and then the wolf was going to be right in front of them. As the story
Ooh.
goes, is that Snow holds out her chains. She kind of like sees something in this wolf because he hasn't eaten me yet, so she holds her chains out, and Bigby lunges forward. She flinches, she looks away, And then she finally opens her eyes, realizing that she's not dead, and her chains have been snapped in half, and the wolf is
Ooh.
gone in the distance. And in the fables, it's revealed that her Bigby could never get Snow sent out of his mind. But so this was going to be intercutting throughout all the episodes, and it was going to culminate with that wolf lunging to snap the chains, and that was going to intercut when Snow saves Bigby. So we are going to have Bigby saving Snow in the past and Snow saving Bigby in the present. So they were both going to have these dueling climaxes. And
Would you ever have that like animated and maybe like have a script to it or something as like an animatic?
We thought about that for a while, and we just couldn't find a way to marry that to live action. I know that Zack Snyder's Watchmen tried something like that. There's this running, it's very almost meta, but in the Watchmen graphic novel, there's a character that's by the newsstand who reads this running graphic novel about like a pirate who's like marooned on an island, and it's sort of this metaphor for what's happening, and as far as the Watchmen story with the doomsday clock counting down. And so for the Zack Snyder live action version, they did an animatics, sort of like these moving pictures of that like pirate
Cool.
thing, and the kid is still there in live action reading it. And it sort of works, but it's very jarring.
Right,
It takes
right.
you out of it. So I just looked at that more as an example, and I just thought, at this point, we let's not mess with what we got. You
Yeah,
can't, and that's a rule with writing, especially for any new writers out there. You'll learn in screenwriting that you can't put every idea into every script. It just
yeah,
doesn't work.
yeah. Otherwise,
Um,
you'll just overload your audience, and you'll also either go over budget, or you'll just,
yeah,
you know,
or it's like you got two different stories fighting each other on the page, and you're not sure
yeah,
which one's going to win.
100%.
Um, and then I'm not saying don't have an A plot and a B plot to the writers listening, but it's just a different struggle.
There
So
is
looking at it, we cut the flashbacks out. Went back to the script. I cut those scenes, and I reread the entire script of FableTown, and I realized, okay, the story still works. Let's go and do this.
right, right. In the sorry, moving forward to the next question. In the show, you played a version of Bigby Wolf. What examples from media did you pull from outside of the comics and the game to help you get into Bigby acting wise? And what did you bring to the character that we maybe don't see in The Wolf Among Us or the comics?
Well, I brought definitely a much thinner version of him physically. That friend I mentioned who helped us produce the first episode, she's the one that actually cast me in the part. And I've told that story many times how she
Yeah, you
took my
did.
words and put her characters on it because wouldn't give it to myself. And I knew the reason I wouldn't give it to myself was because I was worried about not being physically enough. Because I'm not, I'm in decent shape, but I'm not nowhere near like Christian Bale's body type and say like The Dark Knight or something like that. Like I don't, or any of the Avengers, right? Like it's just not feasible for someone who works a day job to be able to put on muscle like that. So I thought,
Okay.
well, the guy's name is the Big Bad Wolf. Are people going to buy it? And she finally looked at me. I could tell she wanted to slap me because that's how she is. She's the tough love kind of person, but she's like, don't do it physically, prove it in the performance.
Yeah.
So hopefully I brought that to the table. So that was my focus. But I definitely was influenced by I mean, it's hard not to be influenced by Hugh Jackman's run as Logan or Wolverine, especially in Logan the film. I've definitely looked at Matthew McConaughey in True Detective season one as
Right.
far as the intellectual side, and someone who always just is like, square peg in a world of round holes. He always sticks out. He doesn't fit in, and he's very sort of walking around this inner turmoil. And then I also looked at I'm forgetting the actor's name right now. Anthony Starr, who's on on the Boys right now as Homelander, but his run as the lead on a show called Banshee on Cinemax was
Ooh.
it's a very pulpy kind of silly show, but he plays a guy who's new in town, goes to a bar. There's a new sheriff in town, literally, but that sheriff gets killed in a gunfight, so he takes over the identity of the sheriff, and he's a former criminal who kind of deals out his own method of justice. So that was a very interesting take of a guy who really has no law enforcement or sense of justice stepping in as the figurehead of justice in a town. So I thought that was a very good example of the big bad wolf who is this monster. And then he's now
Yeah.
responsible for the safety of all these people he more or less kind of terrorized in the old world. I mean, it's really, really kind of a messed up sort of situation if you're one of the citizens of FableTown looking at
Right.
your local government like, okay, you literally he wasn't the bad guy necessarily that chased us here, but he definitely wasn't a good dude. Like, really?
Right.
This guy? So that was an interesting kind of uh take that I wanted to bring in. So I think those were the three main influences.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely when you came on when I first watched Fabletown back in 2019, and I first saw you as Bigby, I was very impressed. Like I believed you had me believing that you were the character, but before I even knew you. And I was definitely impressed, so much to the point where I was like, where have I seen you before? And I want to know more of your work. You know, I was very interested.
I appreciate that. That was a tough beard to grow out.
Yeah, I imagine. But yeah, I was very, very interested in your work after seeing you do that. And I want to say that the first thing I discovered after that was Crick.
Oh man. Oh
Uh-huh.
dang. Yeah, Crick. Oh man. I forgot that got put up. Yeah, that was a 48-hour film festival entry here in
Mhm.
Austin, from the guy who actually did the visual effects for Fabletown. He just called me up and said, "Hey, I'm on this 48-hour film festival. Can you want to come act in it? And I'll give you a little discount on like the VFX for like I don't know episode 5 or something." And I said, "Sold, man. I'm there." So I think we shot that whole thing in a
That was
day.
cool.
Yeah, and that was definitely a character I don't get to play that often. And then everybody, people that saw it said like, "Yeah, you actually remind me of the guy from You on Netflix." And I'm like, "Well, where did
Yeah.
this come from? I haven't been able to play these kind of guys my entire life, but
Well,
here we are."
your very brief villain role was quite impressive, and your expressions really sold that role. I won't lie.
That was a fun one. It's definitely I haven't had a chance to go back to that kind of well yet, but thank you. It was fun. It was a fun
Yeah,
day.
you're welcome.
I can't believe that's what you saw first, though. That's
I
so
did.
crazy.
That was the first thing it's like that I could find, because I don't think Nothing But the Blood was out yet.
No, I don't think so. It didn't come out until late. I think 2020 or
Yeah,
2019. It had a short theatrical run in like two theaters in San Antonio for like
yeah,
2 weekends. But yeah, then
yeah.
yeah, I think we got put on Amazon or something
You,
2020.
it was, yeah. You and I hadn't met yet, and then the first time I really heard about that was the Scream Fest of winter of 2020.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you invited me to attend the virtual Q&A session for you guys.
That's right. Yeah.
So the next one is more of a fun question, and I have been dying to know
Oh,
if.
I have the answer to the previous question.
Oh,
I want to try to play Lancelot in The Wolf Among
ooh,
Us.
oh my
That's
god,
an interesting character to me.
I think you would make an amazing Lancelot. You would be so incredible, like in any version of that character, because I think you would fit the knight in shining armor type very well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But if you know anything about Lancelot, he's a pretty messed up dude. So that's why
I
he's
did
he's more
I
interesting. He's got more turmoil. I don't know why I'm
Yeah,
always drawn to the brooding guys, but
I grew up reading all kinds of Arthurian legend. He's been one of my favorite characters since the Roger Lansing Green King Arthur tales.
oh yeah.
So 100%, yeah, you would definitely make an amazing Lancelot. I can definitely see that.
Are you listening, Telltale?
Please, Telltale Games. Um, but my fun question for you is: I've been dying to know if you recall any bloopers from filming Fabletown, if you recall, and what was the one that really got you laughing, or the brick character?
Oh my god. Oh, there was quite a few. I mean, most of them were technical. Like, I mean, that big reveal of like Sherlock being over Cindy's shoulder, that was very hard to pull off. So there were a lot of like lot of technical. I wouldn't call them like humorous bloopers, but there was one. It's in episode 2. It's the first scene, really. So it's when Snow and Bigby are talking, and Emma and I have about I want to say it's 3 to 3.5 pages of dialogue to get through, and
Oh,
we're just just sweating our butts off the entire time. And
oh
somehow
no.
Emma doesn't have any sweat on her head, Even with that wig, that's not her hair. That's a wig the entire time, a wig of hers. And
Okay.
I'm just dying. And I mean, I don't think either of us were wearing like proper pants. We had like basketball shorts on just to stay cool.
Right.
But it looks like we're very intense because we're being so still, but we're really trying to not sweat and have that blow the take. But
Right.
she has this line where she goes, "Do you hear that?" And she kind of points up, and I look around confused, and she's obviously referring to the silence. And her next line is, "Now imagine that for 2 years." And it's a very cutting line, as it's supposed to be. But we
Right.
were actually filming next to a gym,
Oh
and she said, "Do you hear that?" And all of a sudden we hear this, "Ns, ns, 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 boom, do-do-do-do, all right, guys, let's get it going. Boom, do-do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do." And I mean, I'm smirking and I'm like, "Don't do anything." And then I realize, oh no, I know what her next line is. She goes, "Now imagine that for 2 years." And I just died. There was no saving the tape. I started laughing. The entire crew was laughing, and we've got it on camera somewhere because we were rolling. We
yes.
keep talking about putting a blooper reel out.
You
Corey, our
should.
editor, just hasn't had time to kind of comb through the footage yet. But that's definitely going to be the high. I remember just busting a gut, and then it's bad because you don't have time for these bloopers really when you're on an indie production because
No.
time you're burning money and daylight
Right. Right.
constantly. But it was hard to recover because it was just so funny. I mean, the sound was so clear you could picture the guy on the bike with the sweatband just being over the top. It was hilarious, and it
That's
couldn't have been
funny.
better timed.
That's definitely hilarious. Oh boy. Uh, uh, um, oh, the things I hear all the time when I'm editing back the audio my actors are sending me it's peak. It's definitely the peak
Oh yeah,
comedy.
you'll hear the dog walk in, and the tags will jingle and jangle or something, or someone
Oh,
the roommate in the next room will be hollering, or yeah.
yep, yep, yep. Or planes and cars and everything under the sun bleeding in.
Oh yeah, that all the outdoor scene with Cindy and Sherlock and Mowgli and Dr. Swinehart, that was impossible because we were right near an airport too.
Oh
I don't know how we
no.
got that done either. That took an entire day. That fight with her and Sherlock took almost six
Oh,
hours, and it's about 30 seconds long because we just had so many planes. Yet
so
ironically, when she screams when they're cauterizing her wound, I mean, she did that about 4 times, and Holly she
ooh,
screamed her lungs out. Nobody came outside. No neighbors got concerned. So
that's good. I mean, at least
that's
all the
concerning that you hear that and you're just like, "Well, it's just another Tuesday or whatever."
at least nobody called the cops.
Oh, we were very worried. We did get the cops called on us when we did the stinger, the post credits scene with
Oh,
at the end of the credits. But we knew we had been told by the location manager that look, it was her parents, the land behind her parents' house we used, and they told us at a time, "Hey, our neighbors are pretty rude, for lack of a better term, here."
oh
And
boy.
so, but you just walk out of the woods and you go to the red, blue flashing lights, and you tell them what's going on. You show them the permit, and you go about your business.
Oh boy.
But yeah, get your permits, kids. Don't do guerrilla filmmaking. It can really come back to bite you.
Mhm. That sounds about right. So the next question is where is it? I ah, sorry. Here it is.
No problem.
Out of all the scenes filmed, what was the toughest you had to perform or direct, and which moment are you proudest, acting wise or directing wise?
Proudest acting wise for myself or the other
Um,
cast members?
for yourself, for your cast, like what? I'm open.
um, yeah. I mean, I know I was very nervous for that. My first scene with Anil as Mowgli in the pilot because that was the first time. It was like that was probably day. I want to say, oh man, we had shot. Excuse me, one second.
You're okay.
I want to say that the pilot we shot it over 2 weekends. The first weekend, I did zero acting. Which no, that's not true. I did my end when I didn't have the beard. The what about government officials? Hey, Snow line. But that's really just a one-off. I don't even know if Emma was sitting there at
Right,
all. I think we might have just put somebody in the chair for an eye line because we filmed all of Emma's stuff over those first 2 days, and then
right.
I want to say day three. So day three, we did me and Anil coming to the rolling up in the truck. Me just getting out of the truck, and then we did all of this stuff. We did Beauty and Beast in the apartment. We did Beast walking down the alley, and there was some other third thing we did. I can't. Oh no, those are the three things. So day four of shooting the pilot was me with that beard out at that farmhouse, and we did the entire farmhouse stuff on one day, and I was very nervous.
That
But
would
I'm
take
actually very
hours.
proud of. I'm very proud of, actually. It sounds a little egotistical, but my performance in that scene, just because that's the not only is it your first day acting in front of all these people you've kind of hired, and so there's that pressure of like, okay, is this going to be just an ego project? Is it a vanity project, or is this guy in the role because he can actually pull it off? So
Right.
you can't help but feel these eyes that are watching you to a certain extent, because you're also the boss of them to an extent.
Right.
But I'm
Honestly,
proud of that scene. I think Neil came in and brought some really good choices. He made some really strong decisions, and he was able to find the moments of levity and the moments of um, the more dramatic beats. And so I think him as a scene partner, he really kept me grounded in that scene. As far as directing goes, I think I've told this to many people. Episode 5 is my favorite, probably because I'm not in it that much,
right.
but mainly because I was the director. I got to just be the director. So I really do like all the stuff with our little tag team of Mowgli and Cinderella and Dr. Swinehart rescuing the March Hare slash Watson.
Yeah.
All their stuff I find to be very compelling, and it's just fun to have that many. It's fun to have that many actors who really didn't know each other going into that scene. Anil and Holly had not met, and then they
Hmm.
had to play this whole. Um, well, they may have done their previous scene that when she's after her fight. I'm not quite sure, but I knew that we were setting up sort of a potential will they won't they there. This sort of like, not where it's like a rom-com meet cute or anything, but there has to be a level of flirtation there, just because
Right.
these are the only two people that are the quote unquote tourists. There's a third tourist, but I'm not gonna. Well, there's a fourth because I made up another one, not knowing that Fables has a third tourist slash secret agent that Bigby employs, but I'm not going to give that away because season
Right.
2 might come around the corner. Who knows?
Right.
But yeah, I was just very proud of the work. I mean, I'm proud of the entire cast, but really that stuff was fun to direct and fun to sort of pull an actor aside and say, like, I always give direction privately. So I remember, like, for an example, and then I'll wrap this tangent up. The post credits scene, I remember pulling the actress who played Bloody Mary there aside, and I said, "I want you to embarrass him." And she was like, "Well, what do you mean?" I'm like, "Make him feel small and just embarrass him." And I was like, "Whether that means you get him angry, whatever." And I pulled the actor aside and I said, "Everything she says is crass and beneath you. Rise above everything she says." So now you
Ooh.
have two actors with conflicting objectives, and that just creates conflict, especially because they don't know what the other one's doing. And if they're good actors, then they will fight harder to achieve that objective. And it doesn't mean they're going to achieve it. I mean, if you have a play script and you know that you're going to lose this argument, you're going to lose the argument, but it doesn't mean you just give up on the first sentence. You fight
Right.
until it becomes obvious you can't win. So that's my that was a really long tangent to say that, yeah, I just liked a lot of stuff that happens in 5.
No.
Then something that always sticks out to me, this wasn't what you asked, but I wanted to just say it anyway. In episode 5 is the cinematography and editing between Bigby on the phone and Sherlock on the phone, how it cuts to them almost standing in the same position. It's just a really, really cool thing that we were able to pull off.
All of it was, I would have to say, I definitely, on the farm scene, I love that entire sequence. Not only are you establishing the tone for the series there, but it's just great writing and great direction and great acting on both of your parts.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Anil, if you're listening.
Yeah, oh, he's amazing. Actually, I was just watching a film of his he was in on Tubi. The name right now is escaping me, but he played a detective, I think, and he's really, both of you are incredible.
I gotta go find this movie of his, man. That guy's making moves, and I can't even keep up with him these days. He's just everywhere. I'm gonna
Yeah,
hit him up after and be like, "Yo, send me this link, bro."
yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. This was a fun one. If the sky was the limit with resources and funds, which of the Fables comic arcs would you adapt, and would it be another mini series or a feature film?
One of the arcs from Fables.
Yeah, from the comics
Oh
itself.
man, the very first one, is called "Who Killed Rose Red." It's the very first story that
Yeah,
happens in it. The second arc is pretty good. It's all about stuff at the farm, but it's a little it's very much like a effed up nursery rhyme because you're at
it is.
with all these
Oh,
other ones. But
oh,
like,
it's
I
so
love.
dark.
Sorry, go ahead. What?
I'm saying, oh, it's so dark.
Oh, very, very dark. It gets really there's some stuff that I'm like, "You pushed it, man." Like, this didn't need to be this like, the
Yeah,
stuff with Goldilocks, I find a bit silly. It's a little far-fetched and pretty out of left field, but the
yeah,
first one is such an interesting it's very like you said, you talked about setting the tone just a minute ago. That first arc of Fables, yeah, I believe it's called, like, "Who Killed Rose Red?" And that's
yeah.
actually where we got our hashtag for FableTown, which was "No More Happily Ever After," because Bigby and Snow come across, that written in what appears well, no, it is blood.
It is. It's her
It's
blood.
not real blood. It's like blood from, like, a blood donor center or something. Not to spoil Fables, guys. Rose Red is in the series. You don't just kill somebody you don't see at the beginning. But
Yeah.
it's so interesting because it does set up a lot of Bigby and Snow, and it has, one of my favorite things that we will, in season 2, this will if we get to season 2, I think it's called Remembrance Day, where once a year, all of the Fables, all the citizens of Fabletown, they gather, and it's like sort of
Yeah.
this gala,
Oh,
and they all like kind of like it's like a big toast, for those that were left behind and for the homeworlds they left behind, and
oh, I love.
that's definitely going to be a set piece in season 2. I think episode 2, we're gonna have if we get to that point, we'll recreate a version, our version of
Uh,
Remembrance Day, and then
that
as
is
it always seems to go in the comics, something is that's when stuff hits the fan in season
that is
2.
my favorite arc of the series when Bigby and Snow dance at the gala. Like that is probably I want that dress. I want Snow's
Right.
dress.
Oh, and it's hilarious too because they're both like just not so like you find out later that he's kind of into it, but he's doing his job, but he's also like wants an excuse to dance with her, which
Of
is it's
course
pretty sweet. It's pretty
it
vulnerable
is.
side of
It,
Bigby that you
oh,
don't always get, and
yeah.
I find him actually to be a more vulnerable character than Snow is, to be honest.
Yeah, she's pretty tough. She's honestly, which is why I remember I said, when we talked to you on before, why I loved Emma as Snow was because she brought that perfect authoritarian toughness to Snow. And I feel like she's the one who's usually what we hear in stories is it's the woman who's soft. It's the man who is softened by the woman, but it was reversed here, and it was kind of a nice change.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Emma is the most nominated actor that we have. I mean, she's been nominated. Oh God,
She's on Broadway.
five times. Yeah, she
Oh,
just ended she was understudy for a big time Broadway show that oh, I can't think of the name. It was like
ain't no more.
Ain't No Mo or something like
Ain't
that.
no, yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
That's
I think and I don't know what part she played, but yeah, she not too bad for a girl who I did, A Midsummer Night's Dream with about 7 years ago, and which is how
still
we met. Yeah, no, she's a firework, man. She's about to just set off, which it can be
you
said for a lot of people
you
in the
all are
cast.
you all are incredibly talented, and you've ascended and achieved so much, and it's like it's a joy to watch all of you achieve something, in whatever areas you've all kind of chosen to go off on, and which is going to lead us to our final question of this. And thank you so much for taking the time and for doing this with
Sure.
me. um every experience we have built upon the things we hope to achieve. Everything having done what you've done with Fabletown, and almost essentially by yourself, of course, not ignoring the incredible strides of your cast and your crew and the people who backed the Indiegogo. My last question of this talk is, if the you at the start of the journey with Fabletown, if you could sit down with yourself from back then and give yourself an encouraging talk and a piece of advice about all that's come and that is to come, what would you say?
Yeah, so, let's see, I'm going back, man, almost 8 years ago, 2015, this kid who's backstage about to step out for his first real play. He's one of the Musketeers and Three Musketeers. That was me, and that's where I got the idea. I remember that. Just standing in the dark waiting, and this idea comes to me. I would probably pull him aside and say, "Listen, this is gonna be the hardest thing you're ever gonna do. So here's what you gotta do. You gotta breathe, you have to keep the faith, and you have to know that it's all going to work out, and you won't be rewarded monetarily, but the blessings that are going to come from this journey are beyond priceless. The connections you're going to make, the opportunities that are going to open up for you, and you're going to learn what you're capable of, and honest to God, who you are. So lean into the stubbornness, breathe, and get to work.
That's good. And I definitely would say that you've achieved a lot, and I'm proud of you, and I'm definitely gonna keep on, cheering you on no matter what you do. And with that, that concludes our interview. Now, Jordan, if you would like to plug your social media handles and places where people can find FableTown, that would
Yeah,
be awesome.
sure. I think I am Jordan O'Neill official on most platforms, and that's O'Neill is Oneal. So Jordan O'Neill official. I think that's me on, that's my acting Facebook page, my Instagram and TikTok. I think on Twitter I am at Jordan O'Neill Act, which I'm not super active on there, but
I mean, it's
I
there.
yeah,
Fine.
I'm there. I'm there sometimes. Fabletown is at Fabletown series on all social media platforms, and you can watch the entire thing for free in its web series form. If you just go to fabletownseries.com, that'll take you right to episode 1. There's only 6 episodes, and it's less than an hour and a half. So what are you waiting for? Go watch it if you haven't already.
100%. And thank you everyone for listening. Please, 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 please give Jordan a follow on his respective social media. I believe he deserves a lot of support because the work he does is fantastic. I believe wholeheartedly that it needs to be seen, appreciated, and praised. It deserves and has earned every accolade it's earned. And wherever you're going next, I'm looking forward to keep on cheering you on. So thank you. Thank you so much for
Oh,
coming on.
you're too kind. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Yeah, as always. And until next time, everybody, I'm Faith Jacobs. You too?
Oh, am I supposed to say something there?
Yeah, no,
Oh,
it's
sorry.
okay.
Let's go again. Take 2.
One from the top. 1, 2, 3. I'm Faith
And
Jacobs.
I'm Jordan O'Neill.
Thank you for coming, for joining us. This has been Coffee Break, signing off. I'll talk to you later, Jordan. Bye-bye.